My recommendation for anybody who's starting out is to start with small, like if you want to do a web comic, maybe just like something, like where it's like a season, right? Like
Mhm.
if it's like a season of like comic, single page comic book story, web comic, and then you can collect it later down the line and then consider that one issue, right? Another thing you can do is if you wanted to do something where you're like, okay, I do want to make something. I like this universe. I'm not sure, if I'm going to want to do it for a long time, but I do like it now. Just think of like, having complete stories, kind of like Mike Mignola's with Hellboy, right? Like
Mhm.
Hellboy, he would do like shorts or he would do like a couple of issues, and then it would just be like parts of his life that we'd see, of course you have to make sure that like the timeline of his world. So, or you fill it in as you go, and then later on you have a Bible that you can use from all the things that you've written, right? So in our case with the door,
Mhm.
we don't have like the rules exactly. We have some of the rules and we have some of the story. We don't have the whole story. We haven't figured all that out. So it's fun to kind of like introduce ourselves to new possibilities of this world, and then, try to stick to some of the rules we've set, which is, this door shows up mysteriously. We don't know why. Maybe we'll learn a bit about why, but then eventually, like some of that may come out because the story tells us what it needs, right?
Exactly, exactly, and I also I love what you were saying about doing a whole bunch of kind of do shorter things, build up to it, because if you can also kind of establish a universe, a series of some kind, and then do short little contained things that all fall inside of that universe, then that can turn into a bigger piece or, an ongoing thing, so you're not having to recreate the wheel every single time you wanna do something, but you're also not committing to something that needs to be, 20, 40 pages to tell the story. You're doing a bunch of little bits of it that could then be a bigger story or remain individual and small. And that's a really good way to start. So you're not overextending yourself. You can get stuff out there. You can get a little revenue. You can test the waters. You can still change things because you're not so committed to it at that point that you're like, I'm 30 pages down this road. So we're going there, whether it's working or not. It lets you sort of test something out, see how people react to it, and then build from there.
Yeah. And I like that we've kind of we're doing it very purposely that way, right? We're like,
Mhm.
okay, let's just do a 5 page, like a short story. It ended up being like 6 pages. But we're at least, able to tell this one complete little part of so for
Mhm.
anybody that's wondering what we're talking about, The Door is our long form story that we've created from scratch a few months ago, and we're going to finish it till we have complete pages. And right now we've finished up the 6 pages of like thumbnails, refined thumbnails we're calling them. Now we're going to start delving into like roughing out a single page a little bit more completely. So if you want to watch that, you can actually go to our YouTube channel, either do recaps of the
Mhm.
episodes that we're on or watch the full episode. We also have like breakdowns of them as well. So there's all different ways for you to be able to watch them.
Yes, exactly, and the nice thing about it too is kind of what we're talking about is, the door in and of itself is the 6 pages, but we've got a few kind of short short stories that we've created in our live sketch sessions that kind of fall in the same universe, so that is where it could also become bigger, where we have the door, but we have some, like, some of the pre-story to it, and who knows, we might end up in the future of it, like, maybe what we're doing right now, this is a post-apocalyptic way in the future where we now live underwater, but the door has followed us down there, right? Like there's so much
Mhm.
opportunity to do little bits and pieces of this universe and weave it together without creating it into like one absolutely massive, complicated story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just so a good example of what we're doing would be like, the Hellboy universe, which is, Mike Mignola, created this character Hellboy, like, in 1992 or 3, I believe,
Mhm.
or at least it was published for one of the first times around that time, and then, um, like, he would just tell, like, different aspects of this character Hellboy. It wouldn't be
Mhm.
like he wouldn't necessarily have, even like, when you would do, like, a 3 or 4 page or 3 or 4 issue story, the next one that he would do, the miniseries wouldn't like follow that. It would just be like a different
Yeah.
time in Hellboy because Hellboy had been around for such a long time, right? So like it's kind of like he's basically Hellboy's had a long a historied past, just lots of things happening to him, and so we're just like getting bits and pieces of it. And I guess it's whenever Mike wants to tell these, like what story he wants to tell about Hellboy. And the beauty is too, like if our thing, if the door becomes like something that we get known for,
Hmm.
that we could always have other teams work on it, right? So they
Yeah.
have, they know what the rules are, which is Hellboy, or like in our case, the door. But if it were Hellboy, it'd be like, okay, Hellboy acts this way, he looks this way. This is some of the things that have happened to him. So you have to know all his history. But then
Yes.
there's pieces that have never been explored before that or maybe it was mentioned, and you could always like, follow up on it. So like with this story that we're doing with these characters that are living in the depths of some kind of ocean world,
Hmm.
let's say they do take place in the world of the door, we could always just say, okay, well, what's the story here? Like, we never really explored this. We just kind of did this single story, but we know that the door is here somewhere. What is it, right?
Exactly. And I mean, like, with the door itself, is every time we move it a little bit, we learn more about it. Like in the sixth page, we just finished doing the refined thumbnails, and we established the fact that it didn't show up in video, which is not something that had come up earlier, just because it just hadn't come up. But then when we thought about it, we're like, wait a second, what if, the person goes to FaceTime a friend, show them the door, and they can't see it? So again, it's establishing these new things that we hadn't considered because we hadn't needed to consider it up until we got to that scene. And likewise, when we're underwater, if we wanted to put this door in here, we could establish how it works in this particular part of the universe, which necessarily wouldn't have come up before because we hadn't been underwater and hadn't thought about it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the going back to rules of a story. It's kind of fun to be able to, I guess, have not necessarily have a exact set of rules from the beginning,
Mhm.
just discovering the rules as you go, making sure that they don't contradict previous rules. So you can always add new rules, but you just have to make sure, like if one rule is that the character, ages in regular time, and then all of a sudden another rule is like, oh, you're making this character aging much slower so that when they're in the future they look the same. You're going, well, wait a second, is he immortal now, or is he like what's the deal? Like,
What
are
happened?
yeah. So we have to either come up with a reason for that, or you have to go, oh shoot, we're contradicting our rule
Yeah.
here, and the audience may not forgive us for that.
Well, exactly. And to that point, if in the previous part of the Door story, which was set in the 80s, if we had Sam, our character, take Polaroids of it and, we saw it in Polaroids and then suddenly it doesn't show up in pictures in the future, then it's like, wait a second, I already saw pictures of it. So we have to make sure that we don't do anything that's going to contradict where we're taking it. And we're at a point where we could still correct something, right? We could be like, oh, okay, now that we've established this, let's make sure we didn't mess it up earlier. But there's also a certain point where it's not as easy to course correct. You'd rather
Yeah,
set that out and be sort of aligned to it so that you don't end up having to go, "Oh, no, I just established something that's the opposite of what I established earlier, and I gotta change something somewhere," or it's gonna be confusing or upsetting because people do get annoyed when suddenly you've changed a rule, in your own universe.
yeah. Well, like, so for example, sometimes stories like you watch a show, and like the payoff for it, like they feed it to you so slowly with some of those rules that you're going, oh man, this is really starting to bug me. I'm not really, like give me some more of the rules now. I need to
Yeah.
know a
Teach
little
me
bit.
what this is happening here. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like you always kind of wonder if it is true that sometimes if like writers don't know what they're going to do in 3 or 4 episodes, and they realize that oh, we should probably pay some of this off now, you may have lost like half your viewership because they're like,
Mhm.
I waited 2 episodes and that was enough time. There's too many other shows I want to watch,
Yeah.
right? So you have to be careful. Like it's a when it comes to telling stories, whatever medium it is, you have to be careful that you're not cheating the audience. Like you have to really, really respect your audience and give them things. Uh, if you're making it really slow burn, you have to give them something and something pretty quickly so that there's a payoff for them, so that they're going to want to come back. And also, if you're um, doing something where you know you've created rules that you're not being inconsistent with them, right? So there's a lot of that. There's a really fine balance. That's why there so many shows don't make do very well, even though you know they may be like conceptually really interesting and really well written in some ways,
Mhm.
but the other ways they're not really like they're making their audience really really have to work for it.
Absolutely, and there's so many of those shows that are great in retrospect, right? Like, once the whole thing has happened and it's out, then you can go and watch it and be like, "Oh, wow, look at all these payoffs and all these hidden things and this and that," but while you're slowly waiting for it to happen, you're dropping viewers, you're dropping readers constantly because people do give up on you, right? Sometimes you're too clever for your own good. And when it's all said and done and everything exists and people can look at it as a whole, then great. They can get all of your little things, all your nuggets, all your breadcrumbs, and get to a satisfying ending. But you also have to make sure you don't lose them in the middle because that can happen too. If the breadcrumbs are too small, that people are just like, "Meh, when it's done, I'll read about how this ended. I'll read the synopsis. I can't be bothered to keep like tuning in or reading more and more just to get little bits of it."
Are these things you think about when you're writing a story? Like, do you
Hmm.
how do you like figure out how do you like balance these, the payoff and the rules and all that? Like, what are some of your do you have any techniques that help you with this stuff?
Well, for one, it depends on the audience, right? Like, who is the end user and how into this are they going to get, right? Like, what is their age group? What is the genre? Because that also makes a difference, right? So, there's lots of things that you have to keep simple because the kind of genre you're in isn't meant to be deep and complicated, right? You want it to stay somewhat surface level, be entertaining, be fun, and keep moving. But there's other ones that you want to hide as much as deep as you can because you know the audience likes that. So a lot of it does depend on who you're trying to appeal to and in what way, and making sure that you're satisfying that for them because somebody who's just looking for something that's light, surface level entertainment is not going to forgive you making them really work for it. So part of it is really, really knowing who you're trying to get as your audience and not trying to get everybody because you can't do that effectively. And that's where a lot of people fall is they're trying to be something that appeals to absolutely everyone, which appeals
Hmm.
to no one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So, like, in regards to, let's say, a kids oriented
Mhm.
show, like
Yeah.
comic, like Captain Underpants, which is
Yep.
been a book as well as a movie
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So you have something that I think obviously is meant for very young people, but also can appeal to older people as well.
Mhm.
Like, is there, I guess what I'm asking is there like, are younger viewers a little bit more sophisticated nowadays? Do you think so that it's a little bit easier to like write something that does appeal to, like, like a larger group of people?
Absolutely. You can write something that goes broader, and those are great examples like, the Dog Man, the Captain Underpants, etcetera, because you do have to appeal to both the end user and the gatekeeper, right? Especially with kid stuff is an adult has to decide to make that purchase for you. An adult has to decide to put that on for this child to let them watch it. So, if it's something that they themselves are gonna be like, "I cannot sit through this. This is too boring or too babyish or whatever," the odds of them putting it on or getting it for their kid go down. So you have to figure out a way to do that multi-level thing, which is where you see like something like a SpongeBob, where they throw in some jokes that a parent is like, "Whew, that went over your head," on purpose because they want to make sure that they appeal to the co-viewership, the co-readership, as well. But the important thing is, though, you're not actually trying to be like, this is going to appeal to 4-year olds, 8-year olds, 12-year olds, and their parents, because it's probably not going to effectively do that. Like, yes, a 4-year-old might watch it and not really understand it because it's bright and colorful, but if you're trying to appeal to them and at their level, you're also not gonna get the 8-year-old, and if you're trying to fully appeal to the 8-year-old, you're not gonna get the 12-year-old. So, you wanna make sure that you know exactly who your target is, but also include enough stuff around it that anybody else popping into the room or reading over the shoulder is also entertained by it.
Right. And that's got to be really, really difficult. Like it's
It is.
so I guess like one of my thoughts has always been like write for yourself, right? What interests you. Don't try to do something that you think like is the thing, the big, like if Stranger
Yep,
Things is the big thing or K-pop Demon Hunters to try to emulate that, right? Like I think you have
absolutely.
to just find something that you like, and then after that it's just a whole lot of like luck and determination, like being very persistent with what you're doing and sticking to it, right?
Absolutely, because there's a lot of yous out there, right? There's a lot of other if you are into it, if you think it's good, if you are passionate about it, you're not the only person. There's other people who will find it relatable, who will be into the same thing. So, trying to force yourself into a fad or into a bestseller because you're like, "Oh my god, everyone's into this. What is my version of Stranger Things?" is probably not gonna be as successful if you just do the thing that you're like, "You know what? I wish this existed for me to watch." That's probably the thing you should be creating. I remember when I was in university, I met the creator of The Fairly Odd Parents. And
Hmm.
the advice that, he gave was don't don't necessarily try and write for today's kids. Write for yourself as a kid. What would you have loved, right? As opposed to trying to be like, "Ooh, what are the current trends and what catchy things should I be saying and whatever." It's like don't get yourself so wrapped up into that because kids at the core of it are still kids. So it's like if you were like, "I would have loved this kind of a joke," put it in there because kids will still like it. And if you try too hard to be on trend, they can smell they can smell something fake a mile away, and it's actually worse to try and do things like that than to just be authentic to your style and your voice.
Right. And so I just want to kind of bring it back to what we're doing here, like the bigger picture in regards
Mhm.
to this show and why we decided to do it, which is at least for me, like you and I have a really great like we discovered pretty early on, to the chagrin of some of our other the people that have worked alongside us that we just kind of go off once like I get an idea and then you're like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah, and then I'm like, yeah,
Yay!
blah blah blah, and people around us are going, oh, this is too much. Like, this is just,
How did they do that?
I'm not, I'm still focusing on the first thing you said, and you've gone on to like 50 other things. And so our
Yeah,
minds kind of work, I guess, well together. And
yeah.
because of that, and then we started, like trying to, well, what other things can we work on together? Hey, if this can become a big thing, great. Maybe we can monetize it. Maybe it can become something that can help support us in some way. But my thing has always been first is, do I enjoy doing this with you? Is this a fun
100%.
project? And like, like what are we getting out of this? And so that's the thing you have to remember. If you're creating something, if you're like, well, I want to be the next big thing and I want to have like I want to make money from this. I'm like, don't do that. If that's your thinking, you're not going to be successful at this. It's going to be very frustrating because you're always thinking about how can I make money. Sarah and I both like to like be very imaginative, and it's not just that it's that we are in sync when we do it. And so
Yeah.
because of that, like it's fun to go, well, I want to see what that looks like. What is that going to look like? Well, how are we going to do that in a way that's very immediate? And this is the answer to it, right?
Absolutely, and I think part of it too is people can feel if you're passionate about something, right? Like it comes through in your work. So if you genuinely are like, "I love this idea. This is amazing. Ooh, how about this? How about that?" and you're really putting a lot into it, that comes out the other side. People see that and people get into it as well. Oh, but if you're literally being like, "Okay, what's the next big thing? How can I monetize this? Let me just throw something out into the world and try and make as much money as quickly as possible." People can feel that too. So if If at all possible, try and ride the passion as far as possible. I get that it's tough. Sometimes you do need to make the monetization part of it, but if you can push through the passion part of it, the monetization follows a lot easier than if you're going straight to being like, how am I turning this into something that's going to support me full time? It's tough to do that if you don't first lead with, you know, what you actually want to put out into the world. It's very different if someone that does work for hire, if they're bringing you in to execute their vision. But if you're trying to do your own thing, make sure that you still are driven by your desire to see this idea explode.